Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight into a really fascinating idea today, something that could genuinely shift how you think about your own progress. We've been digging into Marshall Goldsmith's What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And the core insight basically is this. The very habits that, fueled your past wins, they might actually be the brakes on your future growth now.
Exactly. It's like think of it as understanding that continuous improvement isn't just about adding new skills. Often it's about looking really carefully at and maybe even, ditching some of the tools you've relied on for years. This book offers a surprisingly direct path to recognizing those potential roadblocks.
And that's the real value for you, the listener. Whether you're aiming for a promotion, maybe trying to build a better team environment, or just, focused on becoming a better version of yourself, Goldsmith's work provides a powerful shortcut to self-awareness. It can help you sidestep those common behavioral traps that even really successful people fall into. And to help us really unpack these crucial ideas, we have our expert here to connect the dots.
Yeah, thanks. What's so compelling about Goldsmith's work is this central paradox he identifies pretty much right away.
Okay, let's get right to the heart of it then. The book's core message is pretty stark. Success is often the enemy of future success. Sounds like a contradiction, right? But why is that?
Well, it's human nature, isn't it? When we achieve something big, we tend to stick with what worked, what feels familiar. We get into routines, established ways of doing things. But growth inherently means stepping into the unknown, adapting.
Yeah.
And that reluctance to change, kind of fueled by the comfort of past success, that can become a huge barrier, especially for people moving into leadership roles.
Right. And this is where Goldsmith's experience really comes in. I mean, he's worked with top CEOs, the biggest names out there. And his key observation wasn't about a lack of talent or strategic thinking.
Precisely. That's the crux of it. The book's central argument isn't really about skill gaps, is that these ingrained behaviors, these bad habits as he calls them, those are often the real culprits holding successful people back from that next level.
And he actually pinpoints 20 of these habits, which is a lot. We won't cover all 20 today, obviously. But let's zero in on some of the real game changers, starting with one that I suspect many driven people might recognize: winning too much.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How something that sounds positive, like a strong drive, can actually backfire. Winning too much, it describes the deep-seated need to be right in every situation. To win every argument, even like tiny ones, it's about constantly correcting people, always needing the last word, turning every conversation into a sort of competition. And the irony is the competitiveness that maybe got you noticed early on, it can start pushing people away later.
Exactly. You might think you're just being helpful or thorough by always pointing out the right way or the flaw. But as the book points out, this behavior can seriously erode respect. It kills collaboration. People might just, stop offering ideas if they feel they'll constantly be one-upped or corrected. So the very thing that showed competence before now kind of isolates you.
That's absolutely right. Goldsmith basically suggests that sometimes the smartest play is to actually let others have their wins, let their contributions shine. It's about realizing that the long game, strong relationships, often outweighs that short-term buzz of being right.
Okay. Another one that really hit home for me is adding too much value, which, again, sounds like a good thing, right? Like you're contributing positively.
It does sound good on the surface,
Yeah.
but the way Goldsmith unpacks it is, imagine someone shares an idea, and your immediate response is something like, yeah, that's great, but you know what would make it even better? If you did this.
Mm-hmm.
The intention might be pure, trying to improve it, but the impact, often quite different. Your addition, no matter how well-meaning, can unintentionally just diminish the original idea and the person who offered it.
Right. It deflates them, makes them feel like their idea wasn't quite good enough as it stood. The book's point here that sometimes the most valuable thing is just to listen, really listen, and support the idea without needing to tweak it immediately. That's powerful. It's about amplifying sometimes, not always amending.
Absolutely. And that leads nicely into another one, passing judgment. This one can be sneakier, more subtle in how it shows up.
Yes. I know what you mean, those little comments like, oh, that's a good idea, or even, that's probably a bad idea. Even when nobody actually asked for your opinion. Seems harmless, but what's the underlying message there?
Exactly. The key thing to see is how these seemingly small evaluations can actually shut down real discussion. They create this judgmental vibe. People might start holding back, especially less polished ideas or maybe dissenting views if they feel like everything's constantly being rated. Like Goldsmith says, not every idea needs your immediate stamp of approval or disapproval. Sometimes just while hearing it out with an open mind is the most productive thing.
And then there's making excuses.
Oh boy.
Who hasn't encountered this, or maybe even, done it themselves? Feels pretty universal.
It is very common, but for successful people, it can be particularly corrosive.
Hmm.
It's that tendency to sort of deflect responsibility. You offer justifications instead of just a straight apology. Things like, well, I didn't mean to upset you, or look, I was just really tired that day. Who? The focus shifts away from the impact of what you did onto your intentions or the circumstances.
Yeah, the book is really clear on this. Taking full ownership, even when something was unintentional, that builds trust. Excuses, they just chip away at it. It signals you're not really accountable.
Precisely. And trust is, well, it's everything in working relationships, isn't it? When excuses become the default, it just erodes that foundation.
Okay, moving on, another critical one. Failing to give proper recognition seems so basic, right?
Yeah.
But it's amazing how often it gets missed.
It is fundamental yet easily overlooked. Whether it's taking individual credit when it was really a team effort or just forgetting a simple thank you. The consequences can be pretty significant. Recognition validates people, it shows their hard work and contributions matter, it makes them feel seen.
And the book really underscores that point recognition can be a massive motivator, sometimes even more than money, actually. People crave feeling seen and appreciated for what they do. It fuels engagement, commitment.
Absolutely. And sort of the flip side of that coin is claiming credit you don't deserve.
Oh, that's a real relationship killer, isn't it? The classic scenario where someone says, yeah, we did it, when really one or two people did like 90% of the work.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting here is that Goldsmith points out that genuinely sharing credit, even when you did play a role, actually boosts respect. It builds stronger teams. He suggests phrasing like, they did an amazing job on this. I just helped out with X and Y. It shows humility, acknowledges who really drove it.
Which leads us nicely to another simple but powerful one, not expressing gratitude. Again, sounds so easy, but its absence creates a real gap.
Exactly. A sincere, specific, thank you for helping me with that report, or I really appreciate you taking the lead on that project. It can have a huge positive impact. Gratitude builds connection, goodwill. Lack of it. It can easily breed resentment, distance. It's a tiny investment with potentially massive returns in relationship quality.
Okay, another really important one, maybe one of the most crucial, is simply not listening.
Oh, absolutely fundamental.
Yeah.
And Goldsmith stresses it's not just about being quiet while someone else talks. True listening, the kind he advocates for, is about fully focusing, trying to understand the other person's perspective, giving them your complete attention, without simultaneously planning your brilliant response in your head.
Right. It's about listening to learn, not just to reply. That's a key distinction he makes. Good leaders listen to understand deeply.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It shows respect, and you actually gain much more valuable information that way.
So we've looked at some of these common behavioral pitfalls, these habits. But the book isn't just about diagnosing the problem, right? It offers concrete solutions. What are some of the key strategies Goldsmith proposes for actually making positive changes?
Yeah, thankfully it's very practical. He provides a clear roadmap. And the first step, maybe the hardest but most essential, is to ask for feedback. This takes vulnerability, definitely, but it's absolutely crucial for uncovering those blind spots, the behaviors we might be doing, without even realizing their negative impact.
And he suggests being really direct, doesn't he? Asking questions like, what's one thing I could do better? Or maybe, what behavior of mine sometimes gets in your way or affects the team negatively? It's about actively seeking out those honest perspectives.
Exactly. It requires, steeling yourself to hear potentially critical stuff, but that awareness is the absolute starting point for any real change. Then, once you've got that feedback, the next step is vital. Apologize. And Goldsmith is very specific here. It has to be a genuine, non-defensive apology.
Right. Like if someone tells you, you tend to interrupt people a lot, the recommended response isn't, well, I only interrupt when, or I didn't mean to. It's simply, you're right, I do that sometimes, I apologize. Full stop. That shows real maturity, doesn't it? And that you're taking it seriously.
Exactly. It immediately disarms any defensiveness and shows you actually value their input. Okay, the third strategy is interesting. Advertise your effort. Now, this isn't about bragging like, look at me, I'm changing.
No, it's more subtle. It's about letting people know, quietly, what specific behavior you're working on. The book gives examples like saying, hey, I'm really trying to be a better listener. If you catch me interrupting, please feel free to give me a signal.
Right. And this does a couple of important things. First, it helps others understand your intention, maybe cut you some slack. and even support you.
Yeah.
And second, it creates a bit of accountability for yourself. Knowing others are aware of your goal can give you that extra nudge to stick with it. And finally, the fourth key strategy Goldsmith highlights is follow up.
Right. This shows it wasn't just a one-off thing. It shows your commitment is real and ongoing and that you actually value the feedback you got. Asking questions later on like, so have you noticed any difference in how often I interrupt? Or is there anything else I could still be working on related to listening? It shows you're serious about making lasting changes.
Exactly. Behavioral change isn't like flipping a switch. It takes sustained effort, attention. Regularly checking back in keeps that dialogue open, allows for course correction, and reinforces your commitment.
You know, it's genuinely encouraging, I think, that the book's underlying message is ultimately optimistic, that positive behavioral change is possible at any stage in your career or life, really. It's not about saying people have fundamental flaws. It's about identifying and consciously tweaking specific habits.
That's a really crucial takeaway.
Yeah.
Goldsmith really emphasizes that even people who've reached incredible heights of success can still evolve, still enhance how they interact with others.
Yeah.
And the core ingredients he identifies for this transformation are pretty clear. Awareness, really understanding the behaviors holding you back, commitment, making a genuine decision and effort to change,
Yeah.
and support, actively seeking feedback and involving others in that process.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into what got you here won't get you there, what are the main things you think our listeners should really hold on to?
I think the central message is that just relying on what worked in the past, especially behaviorally, can actually block future progress,
Yeah.
particularly when it comes to how we deal with people, leadership, collaboration. Our habits, how we interact, often matter more for ongoing success than just our technical skills. And crucially, the book gives us that practical step-by-step process. Get feedback, apologize properly, signal your efforts, and keep following up.
Right. Understanding these principles really gives you a valuable framework for continuous improvement, not just at work, but in personal relationships too. It's a powerful reminder that self-awareness and that willingness to adapt our behavior is just essential for sustained success and, frankly, fulfillment.
Which brings us maybe to the final thought for you, our listener. As you've heard us discuss these different habits, winning too much, adding value, not listening, which one, or maybe two, really resonated? Which one perhaps felt a bit familiar from your own experience? And maybe more importantly, what's one small concrete action you could take, maybe even today, to start shifting that specific behavior? Even a tiny step towards better self-awareness and more effective interactions can actually make a surprisingly big difference down the road, both personally and professionally.